I'm sitting alone in the old living room. Everything is still here. The chair she used to sit in, the small table by the window, the clock still ticking steadily just as it has for decades. There is only one thing that is no longer here. Every night before I went to bed, she would always ask me the same question. Not a long one, not an important one, at least that's what I used to think. She would look at me very naturally like a habit worn smooth by time and ask, "Were you tired today?" Just that, nothing more. She didn't wait for a long explanation. She didn't press. Some nights I nodded. Some nights I said I was fine. And most of the time I didn't even think about the question at all. I thought it was something very small. Just polite conversation between two people who had lived together for too long. I thought it didn't change anything. She thought the same. She never believed she was doing anything special. To her it was just a habit. One small thing among countless others in a day. I am 88 years old now. When I say that number, I don't say it to impress anyone. I say it because I have lived long enough to look back and see many things I could not see before. When she was still alive, that question passed by every evening so light that I never held on to it. And then one day she was gone. The house stayed the same. The clock kept running. I was still sitting here. But the evenings were different. No one asked me if I was tired anymore. That question, so insignificant, I thought was gone, and only when it disappeared completely did I begin to feel that something very large had left my life. Only then did I realize that the thing that kept me standing through my hardest years was exactly what she believed was nothing at all. When I was younger, I thought a good marriage had to have big things worth telling, important decisions, obvious sacrifices, dramatic moments that outsiders could look at and nod in approval. Society has always told stories like that. A good wife is the one who carries the big burdens for her husband, the one who steps in during the hardest moments, the one who does something so clear that no one can deny it. But what about the things repeated every day? The meals set on the table, the small notes reminding you when to take your medicine. A question so familiar you barely notice hearing it. All of those things are treated as obvious, and I lived that way too. I thought those things weren't worth remembering, not because I didn't appreciate my wife, but because I believed they weren't what gave life meaning. I thought love had to be proven through bigger actions. Anything that didn't create a visible change was just habit. And so I grew used to being cared for without acknowledging it. I didn't realize how deeply I relied on those small things. They were there every day, steady and quiet, until I stopped seeing them altogether. There were difficult years. Work didn't go as planned. Pressure weighed heavily on me. There were evenings when I came home feeling like I had done nothing right. I didn't tell my wife. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I believed a man should carry it himself. She didn't ask much either. She didn't dig. She didn't advise. She didn't try to fix my feelings. She asked only one question, every night, like an unchanging rhythm. Were you tired today? At the time, I truly believed that question changed nothing. It didn't solve the problem. It didn't make work better. It didn't erase my worries. I answered casually. Sometimes I didn't answer at all, and she never pushed. But that quiet repetition held me together. I didn't see it then. I only knew that no matter how exhausted I was, I still came home. I still sat down. I still had one brief moment where I didn't have to explain who I was or what I was doing. I was simply asked whether I was tired. And that was enough, until she passed away. The house did not change. Everything stayed in its place, the chair, the table, the evening light. but there was an emptiness I could not fill. Night came and no one asked me that question anymore. No one asked if I was tired. No one asked how my day had been. Only then did I understand that what disappeared was not just a person, but a feeling of being held. The feeling that no matter how tired I was, how silent, how unable to put things into words, there was still someone who noticed that I was there. Some things are only understood when they are gone. Only then do you realize how much they were quietly holding you up all along. After she passed away, I began to look back on my marriage in a different way. Not through the big milestones, not through the arguments or the important decisions, but through things so small that I had never once thought of them as part of the story. I realized that many marriages do not fall apart because they lack grand gestures. They fall apart because people stop noticing the small ones. We tend to think that love has to be spoken, clearly proven through promises, sacrifices, moments strong enough to be remembered for a lifetime. But most of the time, love does not appear that way. It appears in repetition, in things that are not new, in words that do not sound impressive. My wife never sat me down and said she was keeping me anchored to life. She never said she understood how tired I was. She never tried to fix me. She was simply there, on time, every evening, with the same single question. And for many years I underestimated that. I used to think that if there was no advice, then nothing was being done. If there was no big action, then nothing was changing. But now looking back, I understand that what she did was not solve my problems. She simply did not let me disappear inside my own life. There were days when I came home feeling like I had no value, no role, nothing worth saying out loud. And on those days, I did not need someone to tell me to be stronger. I only needed someone to notice that I was tired. That was all. I'd confused being credited with being held. I used to think mattering meant someone remembered what you had done. Now I understand that mattering can be as simple as someone not letting you drift away, not letting you dissolve into silence, not letting you become invisible in your own home. My wife does not need to be remembered as someone who made great sacrifices, but the things she did day after day became the foundation of my entire life. Those small things were not dramatic. They did not create explosive moments, but they were steady, and it is that steadiness that keeps a person standing when everything else begins to shake. I sit here now at 88 years old in the room where she once lived, and for the first time I truly understand how deeply I was loved. Not through big words, but through repetitions I once took for granted. Realizing that feels both warm and painful at the same time, because by the time you understand the person who did those things is no longer here. Still, even alone, I carry the feeling that I was once held, and perhaps just knowing that is enough to keep a life from becoming meaningless. At 88, I know one thing very clearly. I no longer have the chance to go back and say thank you. I cannot return to those ordinary evenings. I cannot sit down and say that I saw it all, that I finally understand how much what she did mattered. All I have now is this realization arriving a little too late, and perhaps that is why I'm telling this story. Not so that you will feel sorry for me, but so that you will not one day sit in a quiet room and realize the same thing when it is already too late. I want you to ask yourself one very simple question. Is there someone in your life doing very small things for you every day? A familiar question, a quiet presence, something that never needs to be mentioned. And are you treating those things as obvious? I once thought I would remember the biggest moments. But it turns out that what stays the longest are the things I barely noticed when everything was still there. If this story makes you think of someone, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with the person you feel may be taken for granted. No explanation needed, no long message required. Just let them know they were thought of. And if you want, leave a comment. Just one small thing you once overlooked but now understand the value of. Someone else might read it and realize that what they are doing every day actually matters more than they think. And if this story stays with you a little while after it ends, then perhaps somewhere she's still staying with me in the same quiet way.